Welcome to my review of November finished coloring pages. First, let me show you works which I started in the end of October and finished in the first days of November. When I got these Enchanted Seasons books, I immediately did two backgrounds, one with watercolors, and that was for the fall wreath which I demonstrated in October, and the second background I did with Neocolor crayons. I selected quite unusual color palette. Honestly, to do this orange brown background, it's not very frequent thing for me. And of course, I was thinking about doing this page for Halloween probably, but then I didn't finish it in time. And when I finally decided that I do want to finish it, I was not sure how to proceed. Do I want to turn it into Halloween design because here we have pumpkins, or maybe I already wanted to turn it into Christmas one because we have here this traditional Christmas berries and also have these birds. So I wasn't sure of what to do. In the end, on the background, on top of Neocolor layer, I added a little bit of sparkly gold watercolor, so the whole background now is nicely shining. Here I did a lot of watercolors. Most of all, I am pleased how I did the pine trees with watercolors. I usually have quite a big problems doing not flat but three-dimensional pine trees, especially with watercolors, so here I was really happy that I finally managed to do them. Mostly it was because the original line art of the pine trees was one of the most beautiful I ever seen in coloring books. Sometimes initial line art of the pine tree is already so flat that you don't know how to add volume, but here it was quite easy to understand where to put shadows beneath branches, where to put lighter colors near the tips of the branches, so it was easy to color. I did the background for the house with watercolors. I even added a little bit of texture with bricks. Then I played also with my golden pen when I did this pine cones on the lower part of the clocks. Well, part which I don't like how I colored birds. I think that I wanted to turn this one into a cardinal bird, but I didn't manage to do it quite successfully, so I would prefer now to have slightly lighter bird with not so dark tail and wings, but other things here I do love, and I do love how I did clocks, so not bad. At least I got a lot of pleasure when I colored here because I was able to use Neocolors, I was able to use my watercolors, then pencils, because of the really good paper. And of course I wanted to do another page here, but unfortunately I didn't have time, so it will be later for my next months. Another Halloween page which I started in October but finished on the first days on November was my my full-size work in Halloween book by Jasmine Beckett Griffith. Last month I did several smaller pictures here, but finally I also decided which picture I want to do as a full size, and I selected this wolf countess. I would say that she's absolutely beautiful because I would say that her face is slightly different from original regular faces of Jasmine Beckett Griffith's girl. It's not so round. Maybe eyes also has slightly different shape, and I would say that she's a real beauty. Of course, I was attracted to her beautiful ornamental dress with a lot of lace here on the skirt and on the bodice, so it was quite interesting to color. And I would wanted to make this contrast between rich and warm colors of her dress, which of course reminded me about Halloween because of so many orange colors, and cold and almost empty surrounding background. I deliberately selected several shades of cold grey colors with small addition of a very light pastel green for the shining and highlights. So she's surrounded by the marble castle and I really love this effect. And of course it was quite interesting, even if challenging, to do her wolf. I hope that it wasn't lost, even if the color of the fur and color of the stone around are quite similar, but because I added a little bit of brown to the fur, I think that the wolf stands quite nicely against the color of the background. And I do love that she has similar color on her dress and on her hairstyle. Anyway, I am really pleased that I slowly started to color in this book, because from all the books by Jasmine Beckett Griffith, this one probably is my favorite. Speaking about doing fall pictures, I have another one which I colored during the whole month. I started page in Klara Markova in the beginning of the month and I finished it just a day ago. So, not a very quick work. And it's all because it was very detailed, and in the end I wasn't sure which colors I need to use in order for this page not to be too overcrowded and extremely I don't know, motley probably, because it's really very challenging when you color pictures by Klara Markova. They seem always quite nice and I do love detailed pictures, but sometimes I feel a little bit overwhelmed with the details when you need to select colors and to attract attention of the viewer to the focal point and somehow to select colors for the secondary elements. So here I started from one of my favorite colors for this a dark turquoise green for the background, and I quickly did the surrounding elements. Again, it was one of the pictures which I wanted to do in fall mood, so I selected autumn colors for the oaks, for the leaves around. I also selected quite warm colors for the inner part of the room, and my biggest problem was color for the mushrooms, and such a small detail, it delayed my finish of this work. I'm still not sure did I select the right color or not, but at least I do love how all those blue-violet colors, how they look with orange. And it's always a quite successful color combo, so I decided that maybe it will work for me even this time. I hope that the inner part of the room wasn't lost among any other details, and I simply enjoyed how my polychromasis works on this paper. I love how many pencils work here, but with polychromasis it's easier to work on smaller details. Probably a page looks a little bit more tidier when I color with harder pencils. But I love to combine them with Prismacolors to add a little bit of shining around bottle or to smooth some elements where harder pencils weren't able to cover all white spots. So for me best is to mix polychromasis with couple of lighter Prismacolors to achieve the better effect. Of course, I hope that in December I will be able to do some of the winter pictures here, at least one, but we will see what about time, because, of course, in December time is always limited. I had quite big plans for November, but then I received several beautiful coloring books for review, and of course I had to move my own plans in order to be able to make a review, to test paper, to color something in my new books. And let me show you a couple of the books which I managed to test already. Let's start from the book by Kevin Theo. Usually I'm not a huge fan of grayscale, you know that for me it's not so funny when shading is already decided for you, but with portraits shading is helpful. As I am not experienced with faces, when I have some hints where to put them, it's helpful. And I do appreciate that here we have big variety of different characters, men and women, we have modern style girls, we have some ethnic pictures, so it was quite fun. And as my first project I did this Native American girl. Here I mixed a lot of pencils because I wanted to get used to this paper. It's traditional Amazon self-printed book, you know, this paper which artists use for self-printed books, so it's average quality. And I wanted to test how it will be with grayscale also. I was pretty happy that quality of the printing was quite good, so black paint didn't smear up beneath my pencils, and even pencils like Derwent Color Softs, which are quite demanding to the quality, and Kohinoor Polycolor, which also require paper with tools, they worked relatively nice on this paper. I used them for the background here and for the tree. For the main character, for the clothes of the girl, I mostly used my Sucolor. And once more, I want to say that among the budget pencils, Sucolor are still my favorites. On many papers they behave quite well, and I do love richness of their colors. They were quite easy to blend here to cover paper. The only thing I had to use a lot is a black pencil from Polychromos. It was very helpful when I wanted to increase shadows to make black areas even darker. So if you want to color grayscale, I would say that nice black pencil it's also quite helpful. And blender also was quite helpful. On the feathers I even used a little bit of paint, and I think that I'm quite happy with the final look. Even if I wasn't sure how to do grayscale, would it be possible to cover gray and to turn it into normal skin tone, but I think that in the end she looks quite pretty. My second new coloring book is this mini adorable coloring notebook. Probably let me adjust my camera a little bit to show you closer, and it's a newest book by Grazia Salvo. You know that Grazia Salvo usually creates beautiful portraits book, but here he shared with us her experience of participating in Inktober, and she turned all those illustrations which she created using Inktober prompts into a beautiful story about Emma and her tiny friend Missy. Missy is absolutely adorable. I fall in love just when I saw her portrait here, so of course I was interested in coloring something. And when I tested paper, I did three pictures. Let's start from this one. Here we have Emma's portrait, and I did it almost completely with watercolors. Paper is perfect for watercolors. I was able to work very slowly, adding those very light layers of watercolor pencils, a little bit of ochre, then a little bit of light olive green, a little bit of slightly darker brown. Here I added a little bit of cobalt turquoise, then more intense blue color. And because of the good quality of the paper, I didn't have to rush. I was able to mix paints directly on the paper. Only for the face and hair I used Polychromos pencils. Another watercolor portrait which I did here, it's this one. And of course, if you know me, you know that I am a huge fan of figure skating. I watch it probably my whole life. And of course, when I see picture with figure skating blades or with figure skater, I always want to color them in all books. And here we have prompt slippery, and I am very happy that Grazie Salva turned it into beautiful skating girl. Maybe it's not very visible on the screen now, but even for the eyes around I used several watercolor paints, more green blue, then blue green, a little bit of very pastel green, pastel blue colors, so they create nice, even if not very bright background. Exactly what I needed for the contrast for her dress. Even the skin here I did using Naples yellow red light watercolor. Probably the only area where I did used pencils is her hair. I don't know why, maybe because I finished it on the second day and I wanted to use a little bit of pencils. But my favorite work here is this one, which I created using Neocolor crayons and pencils. I always wanted to practice more with space backgrounds, and here I had perfect opportunity. This background I did with Neocolor crayons and with one water-soluble Kohinoor Mondeluz pencil. With Kohinoor Mondeluz I did this lighter halo around the ears, and then with more opaque and intense colors of Neocolor crayons I did the space background. Then on top of it I added pearlescent watercolors, and now it's all shiny and sparkly. Video for this page is available on my channel. I hope that you also can notice that I added bronze and golden metal watercolors for the fire from the rocket. The rocket I did, I don't know, don't remember, probably with Artisan or some other budget pencils. So all pencils work on this paper gray. Definitely one of the best papers I encountered in coloring books. And of course I appreciated that with such smaller size of the book I was able to do 3 projects in a relatively short amount of time. Somewhere in the middle of November I started to think about winter and Christmas pictures. Not because we have already some Christmas mood around, whether it's still more wet and warm here, so nothing like normal winter weather. We did have snow for one day, but it was quite short. Now we mostly have rain. But I decided that as usual in December I never have time for all my planned winter pictures, so it's better to start earlier. And I somehow finished with doing winter picture in book by Jade Summer. You probably have heard about all the problems with Jade Summer books on Amazon, so I am glad that I have this one. I already mentioned in the video about this page that probably for me it's easy to color in this book with various fairies, because behind of each of these pictures I can imagine my own story. Here, when I looked at this page, the first thing which I noticed was those spikes which looked like they were made from ice, and I decided that I will color them like ice, so it can be winter picture. Then I looked closer and I decided that maybe this warrior bird, it was captured by the enemy and it was held somewhere in the ice cave, but now the rescue came and those 2 fairies, they tried to help the bird to escape from this winter cave. That was my story, and in such way it was quite easy for me to select right colors. I did quite dark blue, blue-black background. I did all those ice spikes, walls of the ice cave, and then I used warmer colors for the fairies and for the bird. My favorite part was to color gold. You know that I love to color metal and gold, so I enjoyed doing her armor. I used a lot of pencils here, mostly budget pencils. Recently, I received a lot of comments. Some people complain that I use professional pencils like polychroma, so it's difficult to follow my videos. Some people complain that I use cheap budget pencils when I have Prismacolors. And I would say that for me, sometimes it's helpful to switch between sets. I know that Prismacolors is my main set. For me, it's easiest to use. I already learned all color combos and they work for me on almost all papers. But sometimes I feel that I use the same color combos for each of the page. So in such way, I need to switch. And I appreciate that in many of my books, I can use cheaper sets to save my polychromas. So if it's possible to use my Starjoy or Arteza or Sucolor pencils, I enjoy using them as much as I enjoy using Prismacolors. And for me, it's really helpful to be able to switch from my main set to the less frequently used one. In the end, I even added a little bit of white gouache, so we have some impression of falling snow. Again, I am not sure if it's possible to film on the video because we have such a dark time outside and it's really difficult to film everything under a very bright electric light. Everything is reflecting because of the wax shining on the pencils. But I think that I am pretty happy with this picture. It was quite impromptu coloring. I did not plan to do it, but somehow I looked through this book and this page immediately caught my attention and I'm glad that I decided to do it. Next, I realized that if I appreciated so much to do small pictures in Grazie Salvo book, maybe it's time to return to my series of escape books. First, let's have a look at the Christmas. Somehow here I managed to color a couple of pictures which never previously caught my attention and I considered them quite boring, honestly. The first one was this star, which is actually quite nice because inside we have some nice Christmas objects, Christmas elements, but it had empty background around and I wasn't sure what to do. Of course, when I start to think about backgrounds, usually I start to think maybe to do simple plain black background, but black background isn't exactly in the spirit of Christmas. So in the end I decided that this warmer look of wooden background, maybe it's some kind of wall and we have the glass stained window in this wooden wall. So I think that it matches the colors of the star with the color of the background. Background I did with watercolors first and then texture of the wood with pencils. And here I hope that you can see that everything is shiny because of my Finetech gold watercolors. Maybe even too much shine. Sometimes this cute bird and the reindeer, they are slightly lost behind all those shiny lines. But still, I do love this effect. I also wanted to do this one, but I haven't decided yet what to do with this big star. Maybe just to do it in like huge piece of gold and to concentrate on the many details on the background. So I have to think a little bit more before I will finish this spread. And the second page also never caught my attention previously. I also considered this page with the shape of Scrooge quite boring. Yes, it was in the mood of this book, which is illustrations to the Dickens story, but I didn't know how actually to color it. But in the end, I decided that first of all I want to play with my least frequently used pencils and I selected Derwent Graphitins. Here I used Derwent Graphitins on the background and then a little bit of acrylic paint or gouache paint on top. So it's lilac or violet first and then a white and a little bit of blue, probably to represent snow and to make connection to the blue colors which I used here. Background around the Scrooge I also did with white nice watercolors. They're beautiful watercolors which have a little bit of white into them, so they have very delicate blue colors, very helpful for the snow. And to create contrast, I did the outer frame with warm golden or maybe wooden colors. So it was quick, it was fun, and even such a not very inspiring page from the beginning helped me to relax and to get a lot of joy from coloring. When you don't expect a lot from the page, you can experiment more freely, and that's exactly what happened to me with this page. Again, if you're interested, videos from Escape to Christmas Past, Escape to Shakespeare's, they are all in my November videos on my YouTube channel. In Escape, how many? I did 3 or 2. No, I did 3 pictures. I was a good girl. Let's start from probably the most challenging, because I was sure that from the beginning I managed almost to ruin it. I started from the background and I decided to use different palette for this famous Scottish kilt pattern. I used quite traditional color combo of red and blue, but red, which I selected from my White Nights paints, it was probably too bright and I didn't like it. So on top of it I had to use a lot of Payne's Grey or dark sepia to make red color more muted. Then when I applied blue, I realized that lines on the original pattern, they weren't quite accurate. So in order to define this pattern better, I had to add those golden lines between blue and black. And it was already challenging, so when I arrived to the central part, I wasn't sure if I managed to color this one to create nice spread, because I do love the left side, which I finished probably 3 years ago. So of course I wanted to finish this spread nicely. But in the end, I think that everything looks quite nice. Here I deliberately tried to use several shades of green to make this difference between pine trees, where I used more colder greens, warmer greens for the thistle. Anyway, for those traditional Scottish flowers. And I'm glad that at least now the spread is finished. 2 other pictures which I did here, I did much quicker. And again, they were quite unexpected for me. This one I always liked, and I loved this frame around the skeleton, and the idea is quite good, but I didn't know what to do with the background. And that's where again I decided to experiment with my sets of water-soluble pencils, which I don't use quite often, especially with water. So Derwent Graphitins and also set of my other water-soluble pencils, they were helpful here. And probably it was because of the many fall colors around which we had on Halloween. So that's why I also decided to try this reddish brown color for the background. Quite unusual for me. I never do backgrounds in such color. I prefer all shades of green, all shades of blue, but here I think that it worked. Especially with all those bright red Danish flags. But of course, most of all, I enjoyed here doing this frame. I do love to color gold. It took me probably a couple of years to practice to do gold and other metals in decent way. Not perfect, but decent. So now I enjoy it. I already have my favorite color combos for the gold with polychromos, with Prismacolors, and here I have polychromos pencils. I used them around the skeleton. I also added a little bit of silver gel pen to the sky, and also a little bit of sparkle blue and sparkle silver on the crown. And the final page here probably is my favorite because of the background. Here. First I decided to do background again with Derwent graphite, but then I tried to think about the idea of about story behind this page. Of course, it's illustration for Romeo and Juliet, so I wanted to color it in a very dramatic way. I decided that I want to use a lot of gray colors, which would represent armory, steel, so all those hardship things. So, and in contrast to delicate white and pink in the center, maybe they represent Juliet wedding dress or her veil, her wedding flowers. So it was quite a striking contrast. Together with the red heart in the center, I was thinking that it will create a nice color combo for the main image, but what to do with the background? And I decided that the background have to be bloody. But how to do it? I decided first to do first layer combining gray Derwent ink tints with couple of those dark red graphite pencils. Then I realized that probably it's not enough intensity of the color, and I started to add watercolors. I added those splashes of dark red and bloody red watercolor, cadmium red. And I think that now my background looks quite dramatic. Again, video is on my YouTube channel where I step by step showed how I achieved this effect. On the heart here, on the steel parts, I added a little bit of shiny silver. So I think that from this relatively simple image, which also never caught my attention, I managed to do something original. When I decided about this bloody background, that's why I realized that probably I can do something really unique and interesting from this page. From this dramatic background, maybe let's move to the artists which are quite traditional for each of my coloring months, to Selena Fenwick and Teresa Goodrich, which I color almost in each month. And let's start with Selena. Finally, I remembered about Australian Animals book which I promised to finish one day. Of course, I am still far from this goal, but at least this month I managed to add another finished picture here. I selected a very simple one. I realized that maybe I don't have enough time or patience to do one of the furry animals which I still need to color in this book. I have a lot of animals which I hadn't colored yet. So instead, I decided to do one remaining bird. All other pictures with birds I already have finished here. Here we have this beautiful emu and her adorable babies. Very quick work because page doesn't have had a lot of details. First I did this very bright chimera lily with their pink colors. Then I was thinking what to do with the background. Behind the plant I simply added delicate blue soft pastel background, so almost invisible behind the green plant. But here I decided to use colors probably which are traditional for the Australian soil, which quite frequently we can see that it has quite intense reddish undertone to the soil, so that's why I also used ochre, red ochre color, ginger color for the ground here. And I decided to add eggs because I was really impressed at which unusual color have eggs of emu bird. They have so very dark, almost black, blue-green color, very beautiful. And of course they are huge, so I decided that I definitely want to remember it, and I added them here to the page. Still a lot of work ahead of me, but at least one finished project I can add to the count of the finished pages. Then, quite impromptu, I did a page in Mermaids by Selina Fenech, and it's my first one in this book. I called it Eternal Love. Let me show you. Well, here I used a mix of pencils. Again, if you're interested, videos are on my YouTube channel. And first I started from the tail of the mermaid to decide which will be the color of the main object. And then I wanted to use it as a base for selecting all other colors to create beautiful contrast to the tail of the mermaid. For the waves, I used my favorite color combo of polychromos pencils to create this bluish-green color of the sea, and of course I masked black lines with white paint. The most challenging part was this big cloudy background. I can say that it was easy to do all of them. Probably I would prefer to have slightly smaller amount of the clouds, but instead of masking them with heavy layer of paint, I decided okay. I selected a couple of areas where I can do dark sky, and I used dark indigo here and here behind the figures of the mermaid and her lover, and here. The rest I colored with this nice color combo of lavender gray and dark indigo. I tested two color combos and it was possible to get similar effect. This cloud I did with polychromos and the red with Derwent color softs. Again, because I have this set, and if it's possible to use such pencils for the background where I can save Prismacolors, and it's possible to use my not very frequently used sets, then I will be using them. Of course, Derwent Colorsoft, they created slightly shiny background, so maybe on the you can see this waxy shining on the video, but in real life page looks quite nice. I especially love her hair, which really created nice frame around figures of the two lovers. For her I decided to use paler shade for the skin, and when I colored his skin I added more of polychromos Indian red to get slightly different, more intense skin tone. On the wings I simply did a very light grayish undertone with my alcohol-based markers, and then I outlined them with white paint. I hope that now they nicely stand out against the color of the background. And I decided that I don't want to have this dark mood for this page. All those clouds, you start to think about storm, about not very optimistical things, but I decided that I will add this very delicate pastel yellow color to represent rays of light coming from the sun. So even my dark clouds, they started to be highlighted by this sun. So I hope that on this page we have hope and we have this impression of the eternal love, and now it's not very macabre, and that it has nice golden shining, so it's quite optimistical. I don't know how to show you. Probably it's better to go to my Instagram, where I will be publish normal pictures of all those, of all my finished pictures, because my camera it's not as good as my photo camera, so sometimes it's easier to quote proper colors on photo, not on the video. And now let's move to Teresa Goodrich. Of course, Teresa Goodrich, my monthly review of her work, of her finished pictures. I did two autumn pictures. Yes, I did 2 autumn pictures, and now I need to go and grab my autumn scenes. I completely forgot about it. Yeah, now I have full collection of my finished pictures. So I started with autumn scenes and I did these deers. Here I wanted to create atmosphere of the early fall morning. That's why my sky has all those delicate shades of pink, lavender and pastel blue. Maybe it's a little bit of fog coming also on the background here. I tried to use colder colors on those hills which are far from us and warmer colors on the grass, on the ground here, on the area which is closer to us. I don't know what to say apart that I am quite happy how everything turned out. I also tried to add a little bit of berries to the plants to create even more autumn atmosphere, but I didn't manage to do it, but I still think that it looks lovely. I enjoyed using all those olive green, yellow green colors which are available in Prismacolor set, so I did all those big area of the grass here, and I think that it doesn't look very boring even if the background is quite big. Well, and my second autumn picture was in Country Charm. That was a page which I wanted to do for a long time, but I wasn't sure in my coloring skills for the water. It's still quite challenging for me. I know the main rules where I need to put all those reflections from all the objects and also highlights, but when I start to color I still have a lot of doubts. Again, you can see that I tried to use a lot of traditional autumn colors. My trees, they are started to have yellow or orange leaves, and even green colors, they already are faded, not very bright. All those hills, they are also quite pale, they don't have intense colors. And to create a nice contrast here, I used a very bright color for the girl's coat, so definitely now she is a focal point together with her dog. And I think that I managed to do it. Maybe I had to use different color for the boards. I'm not sure that blue on blue it was the best choice. Maybe another shade of green or maybe row of red boards. But still I think that I'm happy with the result. Most of all that I managed to attract attention to the girl and that the landscape here it also looks quite nice with all those rich colors of the fall foliage. After that I decided that it's time for me to start winter pictures. The quick one I did here on the title page with Prismacolor this time. You can follow it on my channel. A very quick work. I decided that this time sky will be intense blue. It created a very good contrast to all colors of the snow. And I think that page is absolutely adorable. This tiny tiny deer, I also call them Bambi. And all those bright colors on the snowman, I think that it's quite festive, and that's when I definitely started to feel a little bit of Christmas mood already. At least I realized that I am ready to start doing winter pictures. I have one work in progress here, but it's not finished yet. And I have 2 more works in Christmas charm book. Probably it's my favorite Christmas book among the books by Teresa, but I love all of them, and this season I intend to use all my 3 winter books for as many winter pictures as possible. This festive dinner I colored with Prismacolors, and it was interesting because I practiced a lot of things here. How to color food, we have a lot of yummy food here. How to color all those reflections from the candlelight, from the wine. How to do shadows on the white lining of the tablecloth beneath the plates. Again, maybe it's not very visible on the screen, but I do have shades beneath all the tableware which is standing on the table. And of course, somehow I had to color this very heavily decorated Christmas tree in such a way that it wouldn't distract a lot of attention from the dining table, which is more important for me on this page. And I think that I like it a lot. Maybe for me this star is a little bit too big for the page, but the wreath around it I definitely do love. And the second one I did with Arteza pencils, so it turned out quite bright. I selected Arteza here because in Arteza set we have many pleasant green colors, and especially those grey green and dark green, which are very helpful for the pine tree. I was able to use them for the inner part of the branch, for the outer part, to combine them to create fluffy branches of the pine tree. For shadows, I prefer to combine Arteza with polychromos to deepen shadows where I need it on the background or between branches. And also, Arteza has quite good selection of various red and purple colors, which also were quite helpful here. Red and all those orange, yellow colors. I deliberately decided that for the train I will keep this red as a main color to attract more attention, and Christmas decorations are more in pastel colors, that's why they are violet and pastel blue or this purple color, and all bright colors goes to this toys train. I'm really happy that I managed to do some of my winter pictures, and I hope that in December I will continue. At least it definitely helps me to start thinking about Christmas, and at least in the end of the year my list of finished Christmas pictures won't be empty, even if my December at work will prevent me from doing a lot of pictures in December. And now let's move to my favorite finished pictures of this month. Probably my first favorite was that heart with the bloody background in Romeo and Juliet. And two other pictures which I really love were in the book by Anastasia Koldareva, When Dragon Dreams. Here I did Mother Dragon and Baby Dragon. I used a watercolor for the background first, and then with polychromos pencils I did dragons and some of the elements on the background. It's one of my favorite color palettes. I use this color combo of violet together with turquoise blue and greenish blue a lot. This time I also added some warm yellow highlights to attract more attention to the mother's face and to the baby. I think that you can clearly see by repeated colors that it's probably her daughter, baby dragon. I try to use repeated colors, and at the same time the baby isn't lost. So I'm quite pleased here. I had some challenges here when I started to do background. First I did quite bright sand ground here, then I changed it, and that's where this page slowly became exactly what I wanted from it. Well, maybe I had to mask some of the black lines on these succulent plants which represent part of the dragon's body, but honestly, I was simply too lazy. On some of the parts I masked black lines, but I think that sometimes it's not very necessary. And the final picture, which I really love and which I want to share with you, was in Seasons by Hannah Carson. I am crazy happy that after many months I returned to Hannah's works. This time I selected part of picture, of course, from the autumn part from the Seasons book, and I did this adorable couple. Again, I tried to imagine story behind this page, and I think that here we have this friendly swap. Maybe it's a territory of the mouse, and mouse collect the red gemstones, maybe from berries, maybe from these mushrooms, so that's why I kept to use similar colors for the berries, for the mushroom. I'm pretty happy how I did this background from white around the gemstone to create this halo or shining from it to more pastel yellow, pastel pink, pastel lavender, many fall colors for the leaves, for the berries, many warm colors for the grass. And I think that they tried to swap gemstones with a squirrel, which somewhere collected more green variety of them. And I think that in the end they will be both happy, they will switch their gemstones. Let me show you my squirrel. I'm not very happy with my mouse, it looks childish, but at least my squirrel looks much better. I really love her fluffy ears and her tail. Well, that was my November. It was good, I think, because most of all, I'm happy that I used many media, not only pencils, but also neo colors, but also watercolor, and I do love pictures which I did with watercolors. It's always challenging for me, so when finished pictures are success, it makes me extremely happy. And I'm full of plans for December. I don't know how many pictures I will manage to do, but of course I plan to film the end of the year annual reviews of all my book collection, probably of all my art supplies stash, so a lot of work ahead of me, and I hope that you will follow my videos. As usual, huge thanks to all my subscribers who left me comments, for those who subscribe to the membership part of my channel, to Patreon, where I post more detailed and narrated tutorials, and I hope that in December you will be able to find something interesting and inspiring on my channel. I hope that you already started to think about your Christmas presents, your Christmas wish list or presents which you prepare for your loved ones. I hope that you will have wonderful Christmas time, and I hope that weather here slowly will turn into winter one, so it will be easier for me also to think about Christmas. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on my channel very soon.